How would you respond if someone constantly disrespects you? Stoic wisdom teaches us that it's not about reacting, but about acting wisely. We often find ourselves caught in situations where someone tries to belittle us, make us feel small, or simply provoke us. In that moment, most of us react impulsively with anger or frustration. But what if I told you that there is a much more powerful way to deal with it without losing your calm, your dignity, or your control? Today, you will discover 12 attitudes that not only disarm those who disrespect you, but also reinforce your self-esteem and your ability to maintain serenity in any situation. Stoicism, a philosophy born more than 2,000 years ago, not only survives but shines brighter than ever in a world full of personal conflicts and tense relationships. This philosophy invites us to see challenges as opportunities for growth and moments of reflection. In this channel, we explore together powerful tools for self-knowledge, emotional development, and philosophical intelligence. Today, we will combine Stoic teachings with everyday practices that you can use every time someone tries to disrespect you. Because in the end, you can't control the actions of others, but you can control how you choose to respond. If this is the type of content that resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and like this video. This not only helps me continue creating valuable material for you, but also ensures you receive the best strategies to handle complex situations with clarity and temperance. Now imagine this. You are in front of someone who tries to provoke you, but instead of losing control, you apply one of these attitudes and you watch as their hostility fades, as their power over you melts. This is not a fantasy. It is something you can achieve. Let's discover these attitudes that not only disarm those who disrespect you, but also empower you as a person. Staying calm at all times is like having an invisible shield, a silent weapon that disarms any attack of disrespect. Imagine this scene. Someone loses their temper with you, yells, gesticulates, even tries to provoke you with hurtful words. The most common reaction would be to return the attack, get carried away by the impulse of the moment, and raise your voice to defend yourself. But that's where Stoic wisdom comes in and completely changes the game. Stoicism teaches us that true power is not found in demonstrating superiority with shouting or confrontations, but in maintaining absolute control over our emotions. Self-control is an act of courage and maturity. If someone tries to disrespect you, but you choose to respond calmly without showing anger, you achieve two things at the same time. First, you frustrate their attempts to dominate the situation. Second, you demonstrate that their behavior has no power over you. Think about this. Calm is contagious. When you face an emotional storm with serenity, you not only protect your peace of mind, but you also disarm whoever tries to provoke you. It's as if you took the gunpowder out of their cannon. Without your reaction, their aggressiveness remains floating in the air, empty and without purpose. This attitude is not just an act of self-control, it is a silent declaration of strength. But how do you maintain this calm when everything inside you wants to react? This is where the practice comes in. The first step is to give yourself a moment to breathe. Literally, a deep breath can change your perspective in seconds. While the other person is shouting or trying to intimidate you, you focus your mind on not reacting. This small space you create between the stimulus and your response is where your power lies. An everyday example is when you are in an argument with someone who suddenly starts raising their voice. The temptation to respond in kind is strong, but instead you choose to speak slowly with a calm tone. You may even pause before replying. This simple act has a gigantic impact. The person yelling expects an explosive reaction, but what they find is a wall of tranquility that they cannot penetrate. It is not about repressing your emotions, but about directing them wisely. By staying calm, you control the situation instead of being controlled by it. True strength is not in showing aggression, but in preserving your inner peace in the face of external chaos. That is the kind of strength that disarms anyone. Not taking anything personally is like freeing yourself from an invisible weight, a mental shield that protects you from the negative emotions that others try to project onto you. When someone disrespects you, the first thing we usually do is ask ourselves, why are they treating me this way? What did I do to deserve this? But what if the answer had nothing to do with you? This is where Stoicism offers us a transformative perspective. The behavior of others is almost never a reflection of who you are, but of what they themselves carry inside. Imagine this. Someone criticizes you aggressively, points out harsh words, or intentionally ignores you. It's easy to fall into the trap of feeling personally attacked, as if those actions were a direct judgment on your worth. However, Stoicism invites us to take a step back and observe the situation calmly. It is possible that what that person is saying or doing is more about them than you. Maybe they are dealing with their own frustration, insecurity, or pain, and you are simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. Understanding this changes everything. It doesn't mean that you justify or accept the disrespect. It defines who you are. You are so much more than the opinion of someone who doesn't even know your struggles, your achievements, or your essence. An example. At work, a coworker constantly interrupts you and belittles your ideas. At first, this makes you feel belittled, even useless. But upon closer observation, you realize that this person acts the same way with others and is probably projecting their own fears. If understanding this is not enough, you stop taking their actions personally and instead respond firmly, but without carrying unnecessary emotions. Separating your identity from the behavior of others is an act of self-love. It's recognizing that you have no control over how others choose to act, but you do have control over how you decide to interpret their actions. Every time you choose not to take something personally, you gain freedom. The freedom to maintain your serenity, to protect your peace, and to not allow the insecurities or frustrations of others to disrupt your inner world. Always remember that what others say or do reflects their internal world, not yours. It's up to you what impact their words have on your life, and that is one of the greatest strengths you can cultivate. Responding with questions instead of attacks is a surprisingly powerful tactic. When someone tries to provoke you or disrespect you, the most common thing is to react defensively or even attack back. But Stoicism teaches us that true strength lies not in striking back, but in turning the tables. Nothing disarms a person more than a well-thought-out question. A question can be like a mirror, forcing the other to look at their own actions closely. Imagine this scene. Someone abruptly criticizes you during a meeting, making a sarcastic comment about your work. The instinctive response would be to respond angrily, but instead, you choose a Stoic strategy. You look up, you stay calm, and ask, "What led you to think that?" This simple phrase does something that an attack would never achieve. It diverts attention to the root of the problem. Now the person must justify their comment, and in that process, they often realize that they didn't have a solid argument, but only an impulse to offend. Questions have an almost magical power. Not only do they diffuse the conflict, but they also show that you are not willing to fall into the other person's game. When you ask questions, you show that you are thinking. By not reacting, this not only confuses, but also forces the other person to reconsider their attitude. A question like, "Why do you think that is necessary?" Or, "What is your intention by saying this?" puts the provoker in an uncomfortable position because they must face their own motivations. This technique is not about seeking confrontation, but about staying calm and controlling the narrative. Well-formulated questions generate reflection and, in many cases, get the other person to back down or even apologize. But most importantly, they show that you do not allow anyone to control your emotions or your response. You maintain your power. An everyday example, a close friend makes a hurtful comment about your personal decisions. Instead of responding angrily, ask questions in a calm voice. "What makes you think that's useful?" This type of question not only calms the situation, but also exposes the other person's lack of empathy or consideration. Answering with intelligent questions not only disarms those who are trying to provoke you, but also reinforces your inner security. It's an elegant and firm way to protect your dignity while keeping the conversation on constructive ground. If these attitudes already seem effective, wait until you find out how you can take control. Even in the most difficult situations, what comes next will completely change the way you face conflicts. Silence, when used wisely, can be more powerful than any words spoken in anger. It's an underrated but profoundly effective tool for disarming those who try to disrespect you. When someone is trying to provoke you, their goal is simple: to get a reaction. They want to see you lose your cool, defend yourself, justify yourself, or fall for their game. But silence breaks that cycle. It's an unexpected response that confuses, disconcerts, and most importantly, preserves your inner peace. Imagine this scene. Someone throws a sarcastic or angry comment at you in a conversation. All eyes are on you, waiting for a reaction, explosive, or at least a firm defense. But you choose silence. You look at the person calmly, without showing anger or discomfort. At that moment, the power changes hands. Your silence not only prevents the situation from escalating, but also forces the provocateur to face his own attitude. Because in the end, without a reaction, his attack loses force, like an echo that disappears into the void. Silence is more than the absence of words. It is an act of self-control and confidence. It is a way of saying, without saying it, that whatever has been thrown at you does not have the power to affect you. This does not mean that you should always ignore whoever disrespects you. There are times when it is necessary to set limits, but choosing when to speak and when to remain silent is part of wisdom. Speaking at the wrong moment can give the other more power than they deserve. Remaining silent at the right moment may be the most forceful response. A practical example. Someone tries to provoke you on social media by leaving an offensive comment on your post. Instead of responding angrily or trying to defend yourself, you simply ignore it. This act, although it seems small, sends a clear message. Their attack has no importance in your life. You do not give them the pleasure of seeing you affected. Silence also has the power to calm conflicts. In a heated argument, choosing to remain silent instead of fueling the fire with more words can completely change the tone of the situation. As others spiral out of control, your quiet calm becomes your greatest strength. When you choose silence, it's not because you have nothing to say, it's because you're wisely choosing not to waste your energy on something that doesn't deserve it. Silence is a powerful statement that your inner peace is not for sale, and that's disarming to anyone. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, remember this. Sometimes the strongest weapon you have is to simply say nothing. Setting clear boundaries is an act of self-respect and one of the most effective ways to gain the respect of others. Many times we deal with people who cross lines, either with inappropriate comments, condescending attitudes, or disrespectful behavior. In those moments, instinct may lead us to ignore the situation to avoid conflict or to overreact out of pure frustration. But Stoicism reminds us there is a middle ground, a way to set boundaries firmly and serenely without the need to fall into unnecessary confrontations. Imagine this scene. Someone constantly interrupts you in a meeting or discredits your ideas for no reason. You could stay silent and accept this behavior, but doing so only sends the message that it is okay to cross that line with you. Instead, you could say with a firm but respectful tone, "I understand your point, but I would like you to let me finish my thought before commenting." This type of response not only establishes a clear boundary, but also positions you as someone who is not afraid to stand up for themselves, but does so with control and dignity. Boundaries are not walls we put up to distance ourselves from others, but rather signs that indicate how far they can go without disrespecting us. When you set them, you show that you value your time, emotions, and your energy. This not only protects your well-being, but also forces others to reconsider how they treat you. By defining boundaries, you do not need to raise your voice or impose your authority in an aggressive manner. A firm attitude accompanied by clear and respectful words has a much greater impact. For example, if someone close to you makes a derogatory comment, you could respond calmly, "I do not agree with that type of comment, and I prefer that you not repeat it." This type of statement does not invite debate or conflict. It is a statement that leaves little room for interpretation and directly communicates your values and expectations. The most important thing when setting boundaries is to be consistent. If you define a line but allow it to be crossed repeatedly, you lose credibility in the respect you are building. On the contrary, when you constantly maintain your boundaries, you project self-confidence, and others begin to adjust to those non-negotiable rules. Defining clear boundaries not only improves your relationships with others but also strengthens your self-esteem. It is a silent declaration that you value yourself enough to not tolerate behaviors that compromise your peace. And best of all, you do it from a place of calm, without the need for conflict. Is there anything more powerful than that? Not fueling conflict is like putting out a fire before it becomes a blaze. When someone tries to provoke you or drag you into an argument, their intention is usually clear. They want to get you emotionally involved, make you lose control, or get you to their level. But Stoicism teaches us that the best way to deal with these situations is simply not to play the game. Imagine someone throwing a comment full of sarcasm or unfair criticism at you. At that moment, the temptation to respond with an attack or a heated defense can be intense. However, choosing not to enter into the argument is a sign of maturity and inner strength. Responding with something as simple as, "I don't see the need to argue this," or even an, "I understand your point, but I don't agree," closes the door to conflict before it can even start. When you don't fuel conflict, you are sending a silent but strong message. You have no interest in wasting your energy on something that doesn't deserve it. This doesn't mean you should allow others to walk all over you, but rather that you choose your battles wisely. Getting into unnecessary arguments not only wears down your peace of mind, but also gives the other person more power than they deserve. By refusing to participate, you take control of the situation and demonstrate that you don't need to validate your position by having a fight. An everyday example. You are in a conversation where someone insists on provoking you with hurtful comments. Instead of responding aggressively, you say something like, "I believe that it is not worth continuing with this," and you simply change the subject or withdraw from the conversation. This attitude not only disarms those who seek conflict, but also protects your peace of mind because, in the end, the words of others only have the power that you decide to give them. Not fueling conflict is not an act of weakness, but of wisdom. It is recognizing that not every opinion needs a response and not every attack deserves your attention. The key is to remain calm, assess the situation, and consciously decide if it is worth getting involved. In most cases, you will see that the best thing you can do is simply move on. But there are even more strategies you can use to protect yourself without losing your peace. What comes next will not only reinforce your confidence, but also give you tools to handle even the most challenging situations. Are you ready to discover them? Recognizing your own emotions is like having a map that guides you through the storm. When someone disrespects you or tries to provoke you, it is natural to feel a torrent of anger, frustration, sadness, or even humiliation. These emotions, if you do not recognize and manage them, can take over and push you to react impulsively. But this is where Stoicism teaches us an invaluable lesson. You cannot control what you feel at first, but you can decide what you do with those emotions. Imagine this scene. Someone yells at you or makes a hurtful comment. Your first impulse is to return the attack, raise your voice, or defend yourself with the same weapons. But if you stop for a second and acknowledge what you are feeling, something changes. Maybe you realize that what you feel is not only anger, but also a feeling of vulnerability or wanting to prove your worth. In that moment, you take control. You are not a slave to your emotions, but an observer. Being aware of your emotions does not mean repressing or ignoring them, but accepting them and using them as a tool. For example, feeling anger can be a sign that someone has crossed a boundary that is important to you. But instead of letting that anger control you, you can stop, take a deep breath, and ask yourself what response will be most effective in this situation. This small moment of reflection can make the difference between an impulsive reaction that aggravates the conflict and a calm response that disarms the other. A practical example. You are in a family argument and someone makes a comment that hurts you deeply. Instead of responding immediately, you feel that emotion that arises within you. You recognize the anger, but you also notice that what you really feel is sadness because you value the relationship and you did not expect that comment. You breathe, let it go for a few seconds, and you choose an answer that reflects your values, not your impulse. I understand your point, but what you said made me feel uncomfortable. Can we talk about it calmly? This answer not only protects your dignity, but also opens the door to a more constructive conversation. Acknowledging your emotions does not make you weak. It makes you aware, and that awareness is an immense power. When you know what you feel, you have control over how to act. You are not a leaf carried away by the wind of others' provocations, but a firm anchor in your own serenity. Taking this moment to look inward is the first step to responding wisely. And if this already seems like a powerful tool, wait until you discover the following strategies that will take you to another level of emotional control and inner peace. Intelligent humor is like a ray of light in the middle of an emotional storm. When someone tries to disrespect you or create a conflict, responding angrily may be just what they are looking for. But an unexpected response full of humor and subtlety has the power to disarm even the most tense situations. It is not about mocking or attacking with sarcasm, but about using humor as a bridge that transforms an uncomfortable moment into something manageable. Imagine this scene. Someone makes a sarcastic comment about your work, trying to provoke you in front of others. Instead of reacting angrily or becoming defensive, choose to respond with a smile and a witty phrase like, "Well, at least I have talent for something, don't you think?" This response, far from escalating the tension, diffuses the situation by showing that not only are you not affected, but that you also have the confidence to handle it lightly. This attitude not only disarms the provocateur, but also positions you as someone emotionally strong. Intelligent humor works because it breaks the expected pattern. When someone launches a provocation, they expect a serious, emotional, or even aggressive reaction. But by responding with humor, you completely change the dynamic. You don't give the other person what they were looking for, and at the same time, you project a confidence that is difficult to challenge. It's like playing emotional chess. While the other person plans their next move, you have already won the game with an unexpected twist. An everyday example. You are in a meeting and someone makes a comment about being late, insinuating you don't value other people's time. You could say something like, "You're right, I always strive to make a grand entrance." This response, far from generating more conflict, lightens the atmosphere and shows that you don't take things too seriously. Humor also has a contagious effect. If you can make others laugh, or at least smile, it reduces the tension in the environment and shows that you have the ability to control your emotions. This is not only disarming, but also inspires respect. But humor must be used wisely. Avoid responses that can be seen as mocking or aggressive, as that could make the situation worse. The key is to keep it light, witty, and above all, respectful. Making use of intelligent humor not only diffuses conflict, but also reinforces your stance as someone who is not easily affected. And if you think this is already effective, wait until you discover the next strategies that will completely transform the way you handle the situation. Also, demonstrating an inner strength that no one can break. Imagine a situation in which you are surrounded by people who start talking badly about someone else. There is an implicit pressure to join the conversation, to fit in, or even to avoid becoming the next target. But your values are clear. You do not believe in destructive criticism or feeding the negativity of the group. This small act, although it may seem insignificant, says a lot about you. You are showing integrity and making it clear that you are not willing to compromise your principles to fit in. Consistency with your values is also reflected in how you respond to those who provoke you. If your values include respect and calm, responding aggressively or playing into their hands goes against what you stand for. Instead, choosing a firm but respectful response shows that, even under pressure, you are true to what you believe. This not only disarms the other person, but also inspires respect from those who observe you. A practical example at work. Someone is pressuring you to participate in unethical practices, such as exaggerating results or ignoring major mistakes. Instead of giving in, you say clearly and calmly, "I appreciate your trust, but I prefer to follow established processes. This is what I consider the right thing to do." This response does not need to be aggressive or defensive, but it is a reflection of your values, and that firmness speaks louder than any confrontation. Acting in accordance with your values is not always easy. It may mean making uncomfortable decisions, facing the disapproval of others, or even appearing different. But in doing so, you become an example of dignity and strength. No matter how much they try to provoke you or derail you, your consistency sends a clear message. My values are not at stake. Maintaining this coherence not only disarms those who try to disrespect you, but also strengthens your self-esteem and your character. Because in the end, what defines who you are is not what others think of you, but how you choose to act in front of them. The next attitudes not only disarm but also strengthen your character. If this already seems powerful to you, wait to discover how these strategies can completely transform the way you face conflicts. The best is yet to come. Practice empathy without justifying disrespect. It is a powerful balance that few manage to master. Understanding the emotions and motivations of others does not mean accepting or tolerating their negative behaviors. Rather, it is a tool that allows you to see the situation from a broader perspective and respond more consciously without losing your dignity or your firmness. Imagine that someone speaks to you aggressively or tries to belittle you in front of others. The natural impulse might be to respond in kind or simply ignore it, but Stoicism invites us to go further. Practicing empathy means stopping for a moment and considering what could be behind that behavior. Maybe that person is dealing with stress, frustration, or insecurities that they do not know how to handle. Recognizing this does not justify their lack of respect, but it allows you to handle the situation with greater calm and emotional control. For example, instead of returning an aggressive comment, you could respond with something like, "I understand that you're upset, but I don't think this is the best way to resolve it." This response not only shows that you are willing to listen, but also sets a clear boundary about how you expect to be treated. It doesn't mean accepting mistreatment, but rather approaching the situation from a place of understanding. Without compromising your own integrity, practicing empathy also helps you to diffuse conflicts before they escalate. When you show that you are willing to understand the other person, you often reduce tension and open the door to more effective communication. However, it is important that this empathy does not become an excuse to allow harmful behavior. Recognizing someone's pain or difficulties does not mean that you have to tolerate their aggression or lack of respect. An everyday example: a close friend is having a bad day and inadvertently speaks to you in a brusque manner. Instead of reacting with anger, you could say, "It seems that something is bothering you, but I would like to talk respectfully." This approach combines empathy with firmness, showing that you value the relationship but also your own limits. The key is in remembering that empathy does not make you weak. It makes you aware, but that awareness must be accompanied by a firm stance that protects your peace and self-esteem. Understanding someone's pain or motivations does not force you to carry their weight or accept attitudes that you do not deserve. Empathy gives you clarity, but firmness gives you strength. And if these attitudes already seem transformative to you, wait to discover the following tools that will not only protect you, but will also reinforce your ability to face any challenge with wisdom and calm. Learning to say no without guilt is an act of self-love that protects your peace of mind and strengthens your relationships. We often feel that we must please others to avoid conflicts, disappointments, or seem selfish. But saying yes to everything can become an emotional and mental burden that affects your well-being. Stoicism reminds us that we cannot always control what others think of us, but we can control how we prioritize our energy and our time. Imagine this situation. A colleague at work asks you to take on a task that is clearly not your responsibility and does so at a time when you are overwhelmed. The temptation to accept out of fear of looking bad or generating tension is hard, but you know that saying yes will only increase your stress and resentment. Instead, you choose to respond calmly and firmly, "I'm sorry, but I can't do it right now. I'm focused on other priorities." This response is not only respectful, but also sets a clear boundary without falling into guilt. Saying no is not a selfish act. It's a way to protect what's important to you. When you allow yourself to reject that which doesn't fit with your values, your time, or your energy, you are sending a powerful message: I value my well-being and my priorities. This type of attitude not only disarms those who try to take advantage of you, but also inspires respect. Those who truly value your presence in their lives will learn to understand your limits. A practical example: a friend insists that you attend an event that you don't feel comfortable attending. Although you feel pressured to accept, you decide to prioritize your well-being. You tell him, her, "I really appreciate the invitation, but I won't be able to attend this time. I hope you have a great time." This type of response is clear, kind, and most importantly, it frees you from unnecessary guilt. Learning to say no takes practice, especially if you are used to pleasing others. But every time you do it, you strengthen your self-esteem and build more authentic relationships. Those who don't accept your no probably don't value your limits. and you will learn to distinguish between those who truly respect you and those who are only looking for their own benefit. Saying no with respect is a statement of strength and clarity. And if you think that this simple act already transforms your life, wait until you discover the last Stoic attitude that closes this path to emotional freedom. The best is yet to come. Walking away when necessary is not an act of weakness, but a show of wisdom and strength. In a world where direct confrontation is often valued as a sign of power, Stoicism reminds us that knowing when to walk away is one of the bravest decisions you can make. Staying in toxic situations or relationships just to avoid conflict or what others will say only erodes your peace of mind and your self-esteem. Imagine that you are in a conversation where the environment turns hostile. Someone insists on belittling you or making passive-aggressive comments. You could stay and try to win the argument, but in the process, you would only fuel the conflict and allow that negativity to affect you. Instead, you choose to calmly stand up and say something like, "I believe this is not the best time for this conversation. I prefer to talk when we can do so respectfully." This act of withdrawing, far from being a sign of surrender, is a silent declaration that you are not willing to compromise your dignity or your calm. Removing yourself from toxic people or environments does not mean that you are running away from the problem. It means that you value your well-being enough not to allow the negativity of others to consume you. Stoicism teaches us that we cannot control the actions of others, but we can control the situations in which we choose to participate. You do not always have to win a battle. Sometimes winning means choosing not to fight. An example from everyday life. A group of friends constantly criticizes others or encourages conversations filled with negativity. Although you feel pressure to stay to avoid appearing distant, you decide to protect your energy and seek out other company that better aligns with your values. By doing this, you are not only choosing your peace, but you are also sending a clear message. I do not participate in what does not build me up. Withdrawing can also mean larger boundaries, such as ending relationships that have proven to be harmful or leaving a work environment that affects your mental health. Although these decisions can be difficult, they are acts of self-care and a show of inner strength. Walking away is not giving up, it's prioritizing. It's recognizing that your time and energy are valuable and should not be wasted on dynamics that don't bring you anything positive. The power to withdraw lies in the ability to choose where you invest your presence and what kind of energy you allow into your life. And so we conclude this journey through the Stoic attitudes that disarm those who don't respect you. Now you have powerful tools to protect your peace, strengthen your character, and face any challenge with calm and wisdom. Change is in your hands. Attitudes based on Stoic wisdom not only have the power to disarm those who don't respect you, but they also transform the way you relate to yourself. These strategies, far from being simple reactions to negativity, are tools that strengthen your self-control and raise your self-esteem. Learning to stay calm, setting clear boundaries, and acting consistently not only protects your dignity, but also makes you a more confident, focused, and resilient person. Stoicism reminds us that we cannot control the actions of others, but it is our response to them that defines our ability to choose how to react in a different way. Not allowing disrespect to take you off your center is a sign of true strength. It's not about avoiding conflict out of fear, but about facing it with intelligence and serenity without betraying your values or compromising your peace of mind. Every time you choose to act from calm, you send a powerful message: my inner peace is not for sale. Think about this. What if you could apply these attitudes in your daily life? Perhaps at work with people who challenge your patience, or in personal relationships where you need to set healthy boundaries. Reflect on those situations and consider how these tools might help you transform conflicts into opportunities for growth. How would you feel knowing that even in the face of adversity, you are in control of your emotions? I invite you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments. Have you faced situations where these attitudes could have made a difference? We want to know how you plan to apply them in your life and how you think they could help strengthen your relationships and, above all, your self-esteem. If this content resonated with you, I encourage you to explore more mind-awakening videos where we delve into Stoic wisdom and other tools for building healthier and more authentic relationships. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications in order not to miss our next transformative content. Remember that you always have the power to choose how to react and protect your inner peace. That choice, although it may seem small, has an immense impact on the quality of your life and how you perceive yourself. Stoic wisdom is not just a philosophy, it is a practical guide to facing life with dignity, strength, and serenity. Thank you for joining us on this path of learning and transformation. Subscribe, share this video with those who you think can benefit, and together we continue to grow toward a more conscious and full life.